the start. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim and Assalamu alaikum to all our people across the region, the regions Lahore, Karachi, Islamabad, Peshawar, and Quetta. Today we have invited another high caliber speaker, Mr. Babar Khan, Director Global Infrastructure Advisory, KPMG Canada. And he would be sharing his valuable thoughts on asset management and operations of hydropower. So I truly welcome you on the platform of NESPARC. And before we ask and request Mr. Babar Khan to proceed, a brief introduction about his achievements and his years of experience, valuable 18 years of progressive leadership experience in the power sector. He has led asset management, sustainable operation of 11 hydropower generating facilities in Canada. He has participated in the full cycle development of 5 hydropower projects and related utility infrastructure and supported the development pipeline of 1,500 MW of renewables. Other than this, he has, over the last 5 years, he has managed diverse consulting projects in Nepal, Pakistan, Mexico, and Canada related to the operational excellence, asset management and operations, capacity building and training, and the list goes on. And before joining KPMG, he had this privilege of to join as the position of Director, Asset Strategy at Liberty Utilities, managed the Operational Excellence Program for Renewable Power Division with approximately 2,000 MW of wind, solar, hydro, thermal generating assets in North America. And other than this, today's interactive webinar, he would be sharing the important outlines, including the virtual study tours of the private sector owned and operated hydropower plants in Canada and Nepal, leading industry practices in asset management and operations. So I truly welcome you. We're so honored to have you. And now I request you to please go ahead and best of luck.
Well, thank you so much. And Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So thank you for the great introduction, Sabika. Much appreciated.
My pleasure, sir.
So what we are going to talk today, after the introduction, we will try to make this session as much informative and fun as possible for the next 2 hours. It is midnight for myself here in Canada, so we'll try to stay awake for the next 2 hours as well. For the virtual tour, we will take you through the private sector hydro sites in Canada. These are the hydro sites that I used to manage, and we brought it to IFC as well. And we will also look at the Nepal hydropower sector as well in a broad way as well. And the idea of this virtual tour is that, you know, pictures are worth 1,000 words. So by looking at the pictures, by looking at some of the videos, what we want to give you is a flavor of how are things done in different parts of the world in terms of hydropower operations and maintenance. And we will have more of a technical discussion when I review the World Bank's Operation and Maintenance Strategy Handbook in our second half of this session. We will, one thing that I would suggest is that please note down your questions. I think you can send your questions through the chat feature on this webinar. Sabika, if you can just note down the questions and
sure, sir. Sure, sir.
If participants can just write down the slide number, their questions, and we will try to answer the questions at the end of each of the sections, like after the study tour and after the review of the handbook.
So I'll be definitely sharing the queries once after the completion of every session completion of every section, so that you can go side by side, and if people feel to have the queries at the end of the session, then they can write it down on the chat box.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Well, with that, let's go. Along with me today, I have also invited my friend from IFC Nepal, Bhishma Pandit. He will also participate in talking about the virtual tour because he was part of he has been a great part of the work we have done in Nepal. And also the other acknowledgement is Pierre Loriot from World Bank Group. He was fundamental in terms of the book that the World Bank had published, and we will talk more about that. The hydro sites that we will see in Canada belong to Regional Power and now CCNL, so we thank their staff in Canada. And of course, IPAN, which is the Independent Power Producers of Nepal, their members in Nepal for allowing us to visit their hydro sites um, and, and, uh, and, and look at them as well. So with that, some of my contact information that if you need to contact me in future, please feel free to reach out to me or my um, colleagues in Pakistan, KPMG Pakistan, Adnan and Musab, you can reach out to them as well. So when we look at in terms of the introduction of hydropower O&M, just wanted to briefly talk about what is the definition. So O&M refers to all activities needed to run a hydropower plant, scheme, or fleet, excluding replacement or construction of new facilities, but it generally can include rehab of existing components and maintenance overhauls. So that's the definition that I'm going with for the O&M of the hydro sites. And then when we look at the sustainable O&M, sustainability talks then about taking into consideration the full life cycle of the asset, from in terms of from commissioning all the way to the end of the life of the project, where you have to rehab or you have to decommission the site. And also, sustainability is important to take into consideration for for repeatability of the results as well. And the other thing the sustainable hydropower O&M seeks is to maximize stakeholder benefits. And the stakeholder benefit in this regard would be your investors or your investors in terms of your private sector, and then in public sector, it's the utility itself that that wants to make sure that the project is operated for the life of it, to take all the commercial benefits out of it. And so what we're trying to do is we want to make sure that we maximize stakeholder benefits through efficient operation and effective maintenance practices while safeguarding the environment and the safety of employees and the public. So essentially, this is the definition of the O&M. In terms of, so that's just a brief introduction there. In terms of the tour itself, you've seen the pictures from Canada and Nepal. Does anybody has any comments in terms of what you have seen in Pakistan? The only comment that I will have there is that one of the sites that I visited in Pakistan is the new Bong Escape, which is the 80 megawatt IPP project. Essentially, it's the first IPP project in Pakistan, and it's one of the best managed hydro sites in the world. I'm curious as to what your experience has been in Pakistan in terms of other smaller projects, if anybody wants to share their opinion. If not, we can move on to the next session. Sure. So now this is where we can spend a little bit more time in terms of technical discussion on O&M. So I am the co-author of the Operation and Maintenance Strategy for Hydropower, Handbook for Practitioners and Decision Makers, that was published by the World Bank Group in March of 2020. And I would like to thank Pierre. He was the project manager from the World Bank that managed this book, and putting this presentation that you will see as well. So this book is free to download for anybody. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot of resources on the hydropower O&M that are publicly available. So in writing this book, we wanted to make sure that anybody that is in the field of O&M has all the tools they need, or essentially we wanted to give them the guidance to manage their sites properly. So this handbook, you can go to the World Bank site, um, or Google just the hydropower O&M, and it will take you there. So the book itself comes, like I say, it also comes with 6 case studies. New Bong Escape from Pakistan is one of the case studies as well. So if you want to learn how that site is managed, you should download this book as well. And yeah, feel free to reach out to myself and the World Bank staff to let us know what you liked and what you disliked about this book as well. The reason for the book itself is that the hydropower is the leading renewable resource in the world, and it is the importance of hydropower is being realized as we integrate wind and solar into the grids as well. Essentially, you need hydro to provide the reactive power and the ancillary services to bring on more wind and solar into the grid. And as you saw from the video, if you maintain the hydro site properly, it can last you over 100 years. In fact, we have a number of hydro sites in Canada that are more than 100 years in operation now. And good O&M is critical to maintaining its longevity and realizing the benefits. And one of the reasons why we wrote this book is we wanted to, we all understand the challenges or the O&M challenges that are faced by the stakeholders. And so we wanted to provide guidance. And so this book was supported by the SECO, which is a Swiss corporation, and the International Hydropower Association for the case studies. So the funding for it came from the Swiss corporation itself. So the audience of the book is everybody that's involved with the O&M, everybody from the state-owned power utilities to the private sector, operators, developers, engineers, and people that actually want to learn operation and get into the O&M as well. So the objective of the handbook, again, was to raise awareness of the benefits of good O&M, support stakeholders for long-term sustainability of their assets. And the second objective, of course, was to put in place comprehensive set of operating procedures, design and implement maintenance programs, prepare annual, it's essentially everything that the operators have to do on regular basis. We wanted to provide some guidance to help them do that properly. So the approach itself is the handbook takes the approach of the asset owners. We also provide specific differences between the way the public sector manages the asset versus the private sector. And we also kind of define the activities in terms of the repair and maintenance as well. And also, we of course, we couldn't cover everything in this book. So for example, dam safety, environmental health and safety aspects, you have to find, there are other resources that provide more guidance on those. So this book is generally just a high level O&M. And with the 6 case studies, we wanted to showcase how 6 different assets are being managed around the world that people can learn from. And when we look at the key ingredients of the O&M, this handbook was written to improve efficiency, availability, and reliability of the hydropower, protect the natural environment, employees, staff, and the public, and maximize stakeholder benefits, including low-cost renewable energy. So at the heart of these guidelines is good management. Measures to enhance management capability are crucial to development and implementation of an O&M strategy. So we know that people do asset management. So if they're not trained, or if the management is not trained on the O&M, they can't really manage the assets properly either. So as you saw in one of the notes that I talked about in Nepal, power sector, is that we felt like the management and the site staff didn't really understand what it takes to manage, or what it takes to do a proper O&M. So it's unfortunately there is no school that you can go to learn O&M, but nevertheless we do need to understand how to manage these sites properly. If we look at the consequences of poor O&M, of course, you could have safety failures that can result in injuries, death, and environmental and social impacts. If you Google the accident that happened in Russia that resulted in loss of several lives and the destruction of the whole dam, essentially it was just a human error. You have operators that, it's essentially it's like you have two groups that weren't talking to each other. You have a maintenance group and you have an operation group, and one wanted to operate, the one wanted to maintain, and essentially with both of them not talking to each other resulted in this accident. And so one of the questions that was asked about the lockout tagout, essentially lockout tagout procedures are designed to stop operators from operating the equipment that is not ready for operation and causing the damage to both the plant itself and the people that are working on it. So that's why you want to have a robust lockout tagout program at your site as well. If you don't operate your sites properly, environmental failures can happen. You could, if you stop the flow of the water in the river, you could kill the fish that are downstream, or in your bypass reach, just like it shows here. We had a lot of cases in Canada where the operators failed to notice that they have just stopped the whole river, stopped the environmental flow in the river, causing the fish to die. And so that became a big news, and essentially a lot of changes had to happen. In Canada, we almost have to give 1 minute data to the government in terms of how the sites are operating, just to make sure that we are abiding by the environmental regulations. And of course, if you don't maintain properly, you could have regulatory failures and non-compliance with your licenses, and economic failures where it really hits the owners and the managers, because if you have a lot of downtime, or if you have to replace the equipment because it wasn't maintained properly, that hits the bottom line. So again, you want to avoid the poor O&M the best you can. If you look at the benefits of the good O&M, of course, the first thing is always the safety. It's the safety of the public. You want to improve the public staff and plant safety. You are safeguarding the investment that's been made, and return on the investment throughout the life of the facility. So you're not thinking about today, you're thinking about tomorrow as well. So the actions you take today would have an impact long term. So you want to make sure that you take the proper actions. You have to have a long-term plan for major rehab or capex to extend the facility's useful life. We want to ensure reliable and efficient operation to meet and exceed expected generation revenue targets. And we want to make sure that everybody understands what is the good O&M, and what are the benefits throughout the organization as well. So this book walks you through for both the existing sites and the new facilities, and this chart actually is for the existing facilities to say, does this O&M, the current O&M or the practice needs a change. So if the hydro site is meeting its targets, its compliance with all its regulatory requirements, um, then you don't really need to change anything, because once if it's working, everything is working fine. It's you don't need to change. But if any, or if you're not meeting the targets, or if you have an issue both on the human side or the machinery side, you need to rethink about what do you need to change to bring it back to compliance. So the timing of the O&M strategy for the new projects, when we talk about O&M strategy, it's essentially everything to do with O&M. How are you going to operate? Are you going to operate yourself? Are you going to have a third-party operator? What kind of OPEX budget you will have? What kind of a CAPEX budget you're going to have? All of those things are essentially required before you get into the financial close of the project. Where the new owners get into trouble is they don't prepare their operating costs properly. They just take the percentage of the total money required to build the site, and they don't do really homework in terms of how many operators they would need, how they're going to maintain, what kind of inspections they will have. So essentially, they don't really have a proper budget to start with, and they don't have a long-term capex budget, operational phase capex budget to rehab the facility. So what we say to the new developers is that you want to make sure that you have everything lined up before you finance the project, not when you are commissioning the site. Of course, for the existing facility, you can start your strategy anytime with the diagnostics and understanding what you need to do. So this book actually gives you 8 steps to essentially put together an O&M strategy for your hydro facility, starting with the diagnostics, then definition of objectives, key block of activities, exploring O&M models. And the reason why this is important is that if you don't have any expertise to manage the hydro side, maybe it's a good idea that you should find somebody that does as a third party, or you want to have advisors that can help you with that phase. You want to make sure you need to have good understanding of what human resources you need. You need to have good understanding of what the costs are, and how do you validate and implement the strategy. So this is an 8-step process that this book walks you through step by step. And the first, of course, is the diagnostics. And when we are looking at the diagnostics, it's understanding what is the current stage, or what is the current state of the facility, or what is the current state of the owner or the organization that is managing the site. And so by understanding the current state, it then allows you to figure out what are the root causes of why the problem is happening, why the site is not meeting its targets, or why why there are safety issues at the site, or so on and so on. So so diagnostic is a key aspect of understanding what's wrong, to then figure out what you need to do to solve that issue. And so you will find a lot of guidance on the diagnostics in the book. Then the second step is defining the objectives. Once you know what's wrong, then you can say, okay, what are the things that you need to do to get there. And so this book essentially gives you a lot of good information in terms of how you should be anchoring objectives in the KPIs. Again, what are the influences of public or private ownership on strategy objectives, and then valuing expected benefits from objectives. So it's essentially walks you through how you should be creating these smart goals, if I can say that, so that you can manage them properly and achieve them. The step 3 is a key block of activities. Now that you know what's wrong in diagnostics, then you have your objectives or SMART goals. You then have to understand, okay, what approach you have to take to achieve those goals. And so whether you need to change your maintenance approach, whether you need to upgrade your facility, whether you need to, have a different operating model, or you need to, you need to adopt a quality standard like ISO 55000. Any of those things, are essentially key blocks of activities that you need to take. I'm just going to take a step back and talk about this bath curve for the hydro site. So this is your reliability curve for any project essentially. So for a new hydro site that is commissioned today, it essentially takes about 2 years to resolve all of the initial bugs, if I can say that, um, to bring it back into the output period. So the break-in period is essentially about 2 years from the commissioning, where you see a lot of the premature failures, um, and and essentially after 2 years, what you want to achieve is this calm, where you understand what are the failures going to happen, and essentially this output period is anytime, let's say if the life of the project is 30 years, what you want to make sure this output period is as long as possible before you need to do any rehab or end of life work. Um, the book provides a lot of good guidance on defining your maintenance plan for the site itself. What we want people to do is transition from corrective maintenance to preventive maintenance. We want people to adopt, digitization and tools that are available now. Like at one point, the CMMS, which is a computer maintenance management program or maintenance system, used to be very expensive. Now you have online or cloud-based systems that are very affordable, easy to adopt. So what we want people to do is it's utilize the technology that is available now to do their maintenance. We want people to have, ultimately, we want people to adopt reliability center maintenance once their maintenance planning has matured, because that's where you ultimately achieve all the savings once you get to the RCM. One of the things is that if you keep doing your corrective maintenance, which we estimate it's somewhere between 3 times to 6 times more expensive than planned maintenance or preventive maintenance. So if you keep staying on the corrective maintenance side, you're not really saving anything at the site and you're not really maintaining it properly. So one of the things that what we saw in Nepal is that almost all the operators were in the corrective maintenance mode. It's like a firefighting mode. They're not planning things, they're just fighting what's ahead of them. And so they're spending so much time there that they just run out of the budgets. And the other thing is most of these operators are adopting run to failure strategy, which is when something would fail, we will replace it. But the problem with that is if you don't have the spare parts, or if you don't have the technology you need to replace it right away, then that's not really a good thing to do. For example, this strategy works if you have, let's say, for the light bulb, or let's say if you have 2 pumps, you can let one pump run to fail while the other is on standby. But we don't encourage people to adopt this at all. And as they're and if I can give you an example, so for example, these two pictures, one from Nepal and one from Canada, if you can believe it, both of those hydro sites started at the same level. When you start the hydro site, you're starting essentially a planned maintenance, because you have to, for the warranty period, which is 1 or 2 years, you need to show that you are following what the operator equipment, also the original equipment supplier has asked you to do. But in case of Nepal, it reverted back to reactive maintenance. So it went from planned maintenance to reactive maintenance, or preventive maintenance to reactive maintenance, whereas the plant in Canada went from planned maintenance to more preventive and then more RCM mindset as well. So that's a difference. Both of these sites started at the same level, but one went the other way, the other went the other way. So you want to go towards the excellence, which is the RCM side, rather than going back to reactive and spending more time and effort maintaining your sites. Of course, if you are going to be if you are going to be upgrading your facility, it's always good to understand what can you do to enhance your facility, whether whether, let's say, if you have to replace your turbines or generators or any of the controls, it's always good to know what's the latest and greatest that you can upgrade to, so that you can have more more Internet of Things available to you to get. And so just this book kind of walks you through what are some of the options available to people. The book goes through some of the quality standards. We work quite a bit with the ISO 55000. In fact, I do a lot of work with a lot of our clients around the world on doing the asset management assessment, and then making sure that the whole organization is it's managed properly. So just briefly talk about ISO 55000 standard, and I would encourage you guys to learn more about that. And what the definition of the asset management in the ISO 55000 is that it is a coordinated activity of an organization to realize value from the assets and achieve the organization's business objectives. So if you look at the asset value of the hydro site, is that you want to make sure that it's operated for the life of the project. And the life of the project could be 30 years, could be 100 years or longer, right? So you want to make sure that that life is not short-lived. You want to make sure that you maintain it properly so that the whole life cycle is achieved. So with the ISO 55000, we essentially want to have the organization to have a proper asset management system that has both the technical focus and the strategic focus of how they should be managing their asset and the portfolio. They need to have a proper asset management fundamental in the organization and their whole site staff. And of course, the main thing about this whole ISO 55000 is the coordination. We want to make sure that all the departments, whether it's the asset management department, operations, engineering department, health and safety, business development, everybody is working together to achieve this objective or the organization's objectives. So we do a lot of work in this space around the world. And if I would like you guys to also look up Institute of Asset Management if you're interested. They have taken the ISO 55000 model and developed, ISO 55000 standard, and they have come up with this asset management model that kind of, this has about 6 different pillars of how the value of the asset can be achieved. The main focus is on the organization and people, because essentially people are managing the assets. They do the asset management. So their training is important, making sure that the whole management and the staff are competent. It's essentially just so this IEM model has 39 subject areas, which we help our clients with to achieve excellence. And if there is a deficiency, we help them solve those issues as well. So on the step 4 of this book, we walk people through different models that are available to them. And these operating models, of course, are, you can operate the asset yourself. You can outsource some of the responsibility to consultants or contractors, or you can outsource all of the responsibility to the independent operator. So different, so these models essentially are used all over the world. In case of hydrosite, unfortunately, you don't see a lot of third-party operators in the area. Essentially, the owner is required to do the O&M by themselves. And the operators that are there, they, some of them are good, but very few are, properly trained to manage the site on behalf of the owner as well. So that is unlike wind and solar, which is, which is typically outsourced to the OEM contractors. For the hydro, we see it's mostly the owners that do it themselves. And so we walk through, how you should be selecting the model, whether you have the capability or not as the owner, and if you don't, whether you want to get the advisors or the third-party operators to manage the site for you. So it's different, for both the public sector and the private owners. We also provide a lot of guidance on how you should be, what is the scope of outsourcing if you do decide to go that way as the owner. We also talk about the influence of labor laws on staffing. If we provide a lot of guidance on putting together the O&M contract for third-party contractors or the OEM contractors. So this is just an example of what are the incentives you could offer them in the contract. So you will see a lot of the guidance there as well. We do provide a lot of guidance in the human resources section on the organization structure, the staffing levels, education and training. This is just a typical organization structure that you will find in the developing countries. In Canada and North America, if you noted, I said that the Cecil Creek and Bear Creek project, for example, they only had 2 or 3 operators at most. So one of the reasons for that is, or 2 or 3 operators compared to, let's say, you would have about 30 or 40 staff in a comparable facility in Nepal or in Pakistan as well. And one of the reasons for that is in Canada, we have third-party contractors readily available that can provide electrical, mechanical, and civil maintenance services to the owners. So for that reason, you don't need to retain those staff. And also, because the hydro sites are unmanned, they have a proper SCADA HMI that is managing the hydro site. You don't need to have a 24/7 presence there either. So that kind of reduces the number of staff at the site. Whereas what we see in the developing countries, let's say in South Asia, Africa, you will have more, even though you have automation, you will still have a lot of human resources available to you. And one of the reasons for that is just that you don't have support from the third-party contractors. So it's not like if you have a problem, electrical problem, that you can go to third party and get the help right away. So that's why you need to have everybody, all the electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, civil engineers in your staff. Even though these facilities are run, let's say 97% of the time, but the value of that staff comes in handy is when there's an outage and they're available at the site to resolve the issue right away. So that's one of the reasons why the organization structures will look different from let's say North America, Europe to South Asia. So we provide a lot of guidance in terms of what the structures look like and what's the efficient structure, and some of the staffing levels at the case studies that are in part of the book. So for example, New Bong Escape, which is an 84 megawatt facility, has about 69 staff. So you can go through the case study and then walk you through what staff they have and how they're composed and different activities they do as well. So the staffing number varies from country to country. Some have less, some have more. And just to give you different flavor. Education and training, unfortunately, with the O&M, there is no school that you can go to learn the O&M of the hydro site. So most of the training that our operators receive is at the commissioning time. That's where all the contractors are at site, and we essentially learn everything from them. But then we never really repeat the education again. So one of the things that we try to change in Nepal and elsewhere is how can we have more of the training sessions for the operators so that they understand what is somebody, because what happens with the hydro sites is that everybody's working in their own silos. So if you don't provide them any guidance, they would only do what they were taught, let's say 10, 15 years ago when the commissioning happened. So we really need to send our operators outside to training sessions so they understand what is happening, let's say elsewhere. Believe it, if you have a problem, somebody else in the world has already solved that problem. So rather than you reinventing the wheel, it's always important to understand or do the research to say what somebody else has done in the past. So with the training, what I have done, or what we did in Nepal, is that we provided Hydropower 101 training, what we call it. Essentially, it's a training about the system itself. What is the role of the hydropower in the power system, hydraulic principles, how should be reading and following the electrical mechanical drawings, troubleshooting. So this Hydropower 101 is very important that both the site staff and the managers, everybody that's involved with the operation should have. They should understand what are the hazards, such as water hammer, cavitation, everything that is, all the electrical hazards. So any new hire, whether it's an engineer or an operator, they all need to have the basic Hydro 101 training that the owner should be providing to them anyhow. And then your engineers need to have specialized training, whether it's mid writing training, non-destructive testing training, SCADA, HMI, maintenance, dam safety assessments. So then these are all the specialized training streams that you need to have for your staff as well. Unfortunately, this is a problem all over the world, that it's very rare that you will find an institution that can give you this kind of standard training. The owners essentially have to create this training themselves, or with the help of the engineering companies like NESPAC and others, or let's say KPMG, we can help the owners define these training programs for their staff as well. So this book walks you through how should you be estimating your OPEX and CAPEX cost, and then it also provides you benchmarking tools to gauge against what the rest of the world is doing as well. So this is just a long-term CAPEX plan. So we provide guidance in terms of how you should be developing it. So for example, a Kaplan turbine or a Pelton turbine, let's say it has a life of 40 to 70 years. Now, this life is in North America. This life gets very reduced. Let's say if you buy Chinese turbines, not that Chinese turbines are not good, I'm just saying that if you don't buy standard equipment or good quality equipment, then the expected life would be very less. And one of the comments that I get is that the expected life that we presented in this book is too high compared to what we see in South Asia. And the reason for that is the sediment loading and the design of the equipment is not really robust enough to achieve the lifespan that we see in the rest of the world. So this book also provides you some cost assessments of the six case studies as well, that if somebody is interested to know what does the O&M cost or around the world. It gives you that information as well. Validation of the strategy, implementation of the strategy, I'm going to skip. It's very straightforward. The case studies, I will really encourage you guys to download and read. And then in the appendix of the main book, we try to provide as much information as possible in terms of, the O&M glossary, the dashboard for technical diagnostics. We provided the whole job descriptions for all the functions in the Hydro site. So you will have detailed job description for each of the roles. You will have all the KPIs that are readily used, the template to put together the OPEX costs and so on. So it's essentially everything that you need to manage your Hydro site. We try to provide as much information as possible in this book. So with that, I will take any questions from you. If you have anything that you want to share in terms of challenges in Pakistan in hydropower O&M, happy to discuss that with you right now as well.
Sir, thank you so much for this detailed and comprehensive your thoughts that you've shared on operations and management of hydropower, and obviously the leading industry practices. Again, the valuable steps that's being shared by you. One of our participants, they are requesting that if you can share the link how to download this book in PDF. Sure. And I request my participants that this could be available on our chat box. If given by a resource person, they can have it, they can note down from there.
Yeah, so it's very easy. Just type in hydropower O&M on Google. It will take you through the World Bank site, and then you can just download it from there. So as you can see in the video, it's essentially just that. Yeah.
And yeah, this is definitely visible to our participants as well. So coming to our queries, we do have some to ask you from our participants that kindly share the precedent of a turbine breaking up to 100 years, as you have mentioned. Can you please share the impact on its O&M with time and impact on hill chart?
Sure. So I think what I can show you here is this. I think this is a good one. So as you can see, let's say if the hydro site has a life of 30 years or the contract is 30 years, what you will see is that you will have to do some interventions every 5 to 10 years on the mechanical side. This particular hydro site had a very high sediment loading in the river, so we estimated that they would have to do a large intervention on the mechanical equipment or the mechanical turbine in 30 years. So you can see this green column here is a very big cost to replace the turbines. But every 5 years, you have to spend some money into rehabbing those turbines. So essentially what you're trying to do is prolong their life as much as possible based on the site conditions. So if that helps. So as you saw in the hill chart, sorry, the bathtub curve is you will have the break-in period where you have the premature failures that are high in the beginning, but they drop. And what you will have is the wear out failures starting to increase. So every 5 to 10 years, you would have to take care of these wear out failures as much as possible so that you have much smoother output period as possible, if that helps.
Perfect, sir. Coming to the next one, sir, that during design of the hydropower plant, we normally take O&M cost, a recurring cost of 1 to 2%. What's the present cost taken for O&M worldwide?
Sure.
Is there any reference for O&M charges for low, medium, and high head HPPs?
Yes, so this book gives you very detailed information on the costing of the OPEX costs. And so if you go through that book, you will find good information there. The problem with just estimating 1 to 3% is problematic because each site would have a different, let's say, sediment loading. It will have different factors on its own. So you almost have to do an exercise from scratch to say how many operators would you need, what kind of maintenance would you need to do, and then based on that, you need to do your proper O&M. And so this book gives you that guidance. And also you can then compare the cost that you come up with or your engineers come up with the benchmark to see how close you are with what the worldwide estimates are as well. So I encourage you to go through those steps in this book as well.
Great, sir. And the last one, that if you could suggest some useful courses by the NESPAC for the HPP operation engineers.
Sure. So in that regard, if you look at the list here, I think all of these are very good courses. Like, for example, the dam safety assessment, civil inspection and repairs, high voltage, medium voltage equipment testing, working with the CMMS systems, working with the SCADA, advanced troubleshooting. All of these are good courses that I think NESPAC should be thinking about to offer to the hydropower O&M engineers so that the better they are in the troubleshooting and the better they are in solving the issues, I think that will really help the sector as well.
Mm-hmm. I think people are off with all the queries, and definitely it must be turned out to be fruitful for the people particularly relevant in operations and hydropower fields working specifically. And we are truly grateful, sir, giving us your valuable time and reflecting a greater guidance light for all of my engineers. And definitely they'll be going to be helping them a lot in their particular field relevant with operations and hydropower. And sir, thank you so much for your time, because across you have been busy with your commitments, but definitely you turned out to be a great help for us, and it was wonderful sharing your expertise and taking your valuable thoughts on these specific specialized engineering field. Sir, thank you so much once again, and we'll definitely be in touch with you. And I encourage my participants that if you feel enough to have any queries with Sir Babar, his contact information is already available on his slides. You can ask him directly whatever you feel enough, particularly with your relevant fields. And that's all from our side, sir. Take best care of your health, and definitely we'll be contacting you in the longer run. Thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you, Sabika. And
you would like to say something, please. We'll definitely would love to.
What I would say is that KPMG Pakistan also has some really good capabilities in the infrastructure advisory side. So the Canadian side and the Pakistani, it's just a global forum. So we are able to work, and support the whole kind of sector as well, and work with NESPAC in solving the challenges in hydropower in Pakistan as well. So thank you, Sabika, and thank you for organizing this.
Thank you so much. Take best care. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Take care. Welcome, Salam.